And hello, we are live today on A Book and a Beverage, and we have the USA Today best-selling author, although one day she'll be a New York Times best-selling author, Katherine D. Graham.
Hey, everybody. It's so good to be here.
Yeah, we got a comment already.
Wow.
What's up with that?
John, you are a rock star. Wow. We've done many of these shows where we didn't have anyone the entire time. This is what happens when you get the heavyweights to come.
I know I write dark. You don't have to start drinking before the live.
So, I'm just amazed. I thought it was a typo when because Mike puts the teaser together and it says, New York Times best-selling author, and I'm like, Jesus, I'm not the best-selling author of my row at the Comic-Con, much less New York Times.
One day. Yeah, USA Today for now.
Yeah, I didn't know if maybe he just didn't tell you what was really happening here, or he promised you something that we are just not going to deliver.
Mike's like, by the way, while you're on the live.
So I do have to, because I'm getting better at this, everyone like and subscribe. Woohoo! I remembered. That makes 2 shows now where I remember to say that. And Katherine, before we get started, the grilling questions up front. What are your book and beverage?
Yeah, so the easy one was the beverage. This is sparkling red grape juice, even though it looks like wine or blood if you're a vampire person, but out of root beer, so that's what that is. And I had so much trouble picking a book. I can't even tell you. Like, Mike, you've been on my channel, how many books I read. Yeah. So the one I went with was The Lost Heir by Chris Gurley. Nice. It's a dark, epic fantasy, borderline grimdark in places, but still, I think, readable by YA and a lot of standards. But it's about a girl who is raised out in the deserts, is sort of an exile, and she finds out that she has a lineage that I'm not going to spoil on here that will change the fate of several countries around her, including her small tribal community. And so she has to decide basically which world she's going to choose to belong in and all the consequences that come with that.
Well, that's awesome.
So what you said, like dark and grimdark, for those of us who are sheltered literarily,
you were in the military row.
Yeah, but I was in the Air Force, man. What's grimdark? What's the dividing line between a fool getting killed with a sword in the head and grimdark?
I think that's a great question. I've asked it on a lot of past panels, so I'm going to rely on the other authors' expertise from past panels.
See, Mike, it was a great question.
It's a great question because there's a line. I didn't even know that there was Noble Bright as an official epic fantasy genre until I asked that question on a panel one year during a blitz at New Year's. Noble Bright is where there's going to be a redemptive ending. Hope is one of the central themes. It's the ability of people to overcome their situation, sort of like how Frodo ends up throwing the ring in the fires of Mount Doom at the end of Lord of the Rings.
Sorry, that sounds boring. Yeah, I mean, it's fine, right? It's just
yeah.
Like and then Dark, oh yay!
Dark is questionable. Dark can have a happy ending. It could also have a bittersweet ending. There's sometimes less hope and more choosing between the better of 2 evils. And then grimdark is you pretty much know going in, this is going to be a dark, depressing book. There's probably going to be horror elements in both, but more so in grimdark. A lot of blood and gore and death. And at the end, I have written a couple of grimdarks. They do not have happy endings, and to the extreme where I actually have a disclaimer in the beginning of a couple of my books that says this book does not have a happy ending. I do have some that do, but this is not one you should pick up if that's what you're looking for.
Okay, so basically, I was going to say in grimdark, if there's a character you like, they're probably going to die.
Yeah,
or they're going to turn evil.
Or my books. We're not grimdark, but don't get too attached.
When I think dark, I think like Andy Peliquin, and I think Brandon Sanderson a little bit, and George R. R. Martin is definitely dark.
Oh,
and
yeah.
has some grimdark elements to his too. When I think grimdark, I think Jay Kristoff, like right off the bat, with all the things get worse and worse and worse. But what draws me to writing it and to reading it is seeing how we as humanity really navigates those points in life, I guess, as opposed to, it's going to be a happy ending, but you're following along on the journey. It's how are people growing when there is no hope and it is the worst of the worst. And sometimes those are some of my favorite characters.
Okay, so I have 2 questions related to a book series then. Harry Potter, dark or grimdark? Because
I have only read the first 4 books. I can turn in my epic fantasy card right there. I've read all of Lord of the Rings. So I read Lord of the Rings every year. The Hobbit and the whole Lord of the Rings trilogy once a year. But the Harry Potter books, I got to book 4 and I was so depressed. I was in high school and I was so depressed at the end of book 4. I was like, no, I'm done. And people told me, you need to go back and finish.
Yeah.
I haven't finished yet.
You haven't seen the movies?
No, I've only seen the first movie.
I'm laughing at something John wrote. I really want to ask you this question, but it's going to ruin it. I can't ask. The book came out 20 years ago. I think your spoiler thing, I think you've exceeded the statute of limitations on spoilers for this.
Exactly. Ask away.
But you won't know. My
Or
question
we can do it as homework. We can do it on
the real hero of the Harry Potter stories, because I submit it is not Harry Potter. The real hero of that whole thing is Snape.
Mm-hmm.
John, Mike? Sorry, John.
I don't know. I can see that. I thought that's who you're going to say but I just remember the whole time when I would watch this with my nephews, and I'd go, and this is where Snape gets him. And they go, no, Uncle Mike, no. And then the scene would happen, like, he got away, Uncle Mike. I'm like, this is too easy. This is fishing.
Snape was James Bond. I mean, he had to go deep undercover for decades, right? And he harbored this love for this woman and blah, blah, blah. And he'd had to do all this stuff. And he wasn't, that stupid old man with the hat, Dumbledore, who was just using an 11-year-old boy with horrible things. I'm just not going to tell you. Ha, ha, ha. Figure it out. That was a school of child neglect. Snape was the only one showing him anything useful. But my other thing with it, and you talked about, characters you love getting killed. And I won't say anything other than one word. I will just say Dobby.
Oh, yeah.
That was unnecessary.
There's, I think in fantasy, no matter how dark it is, there are some lines that you just don't cross. Pets and the adorable side characters like Dobby. I don't know. If you read my books, I do not kill off any pets at any point. Even in the darkest of dark books, the whole city is going to burn down and the cat will live. Like, it's just...
If you kill a dog, John Wick's coming for you. Don't do it.
So, Catherine, I just want to point out that Grommy here has his elf ears on in support of Talon from A Vow the Twisted Fate.
Oh, thank you.
You need a hobby.
Yes. Speaking of characters that die, I'm still getting over just the weird. I was so upset.
So,
with who?
With me.
The same character I said no to?
Yes.
I was like, you've got to be kidding me. I looked at my husband, I closed the book, and I said, this book that I'm doing right now, my favorite character. Oh.
So I have to tell you, I was in a show and a guy said, a person came up to me and said, you write first person present tense, so I know the main character can't die. He's like, challenge accepted. He goes, I've now written 8 books, and in 3 books, the main character dies. I'm not telling you which ones. And so I was like, man, this guy's just a badass. And then when I was writing this book, I had all kinds of trouble with, writer's block with this thing. And Tori Tecton put out a Dear Writer thing. And Ty the Reader guy just gave some advice in that. And I was like, yes, that's what I'm going to do. And that's why this happens. Because Ty the Reader guy said, you're stuck? Well, do this. I'm like, done.
Nuke 'em all.
Yeah.
I didn't know main characters could buy, says C.H. Smith. Is this someone you know? Catherine?
Yeah. C.H. wrote The Princess Knight, which is another book where, just spoilers, everybody knows it takes a lot to make me cry in a book. I wept so hard at the end of The Princess Knight, which is one of those general, it can be read by your kids or an adult, and the ending was so unexpected. My husband was like, who died? I was like, I couldn't even talk for half an hour.
As a writer, when you hear that kind of thing, that's just gold. That just warms you when someone says. A friend of mine read one of my books, and he's not given to crying, and he told me, he says, "Oh, you actually made me cry during that." His wife told me that too. And it's like, well, I didn't mean to, but yay,
Yeah. So everybody watching is going to have to wait and read Mike's new books if they want to see who ends up unalived.
I will just warn people, when book 7, the final book, comes out and it's a battle between two things, there will be losses. I don't know who yet. I keep going back and forth. I'm almost like, kill them all. I'm like, no,
dice, right?
I'm like, somebody has to live to tell the story. So, there has to be an epilogue where somebody's alive, but it's going to be ugly.
Sounds like a couple of D10s would do it, Mike. Figure it out.
Yeah.
How about you? You kill off anybody in your book?
What's that?
You unalive anybody in your book?
Oh God, yeah. I have some characters who don't see it through. Quite a few, actually.
See, now I got to go read your books.
So Catherine, I have the ugly question that I don't know if you even want to talk about or not.
Okay.
But can you tell us about what happened earlier this year when you were launching your 5 books, one every other month?
Before you do that, though,
this is a horror.
What's the name of your book series and everything? If you have a copy of one, hold it up so people know what it is we're talking about.
Okay, so I don't have any physical copies of the one Mike's talking about. I do have The Vow That Twisted Fate here, which is the one that the ears are for back there. This is my Noble Bright one. It's got that happier ending.
And you let me say all of that.
But it's about a dwarf and a human who have to go to a different dimension and fight an evil queen to keep her from destroying their world.
Very good book.
And, then the one that hit the USA Today bestseller list in the Realm of Darkness box set was Splitting Dawn.
Nice.
And that one's a darker book, also epic fantasy, but this one's got demons and vampire elves and angels all mixed in.
Vampire elves.
I was going to say vampire elves. Like, elves on their own aren't bad enough, and vampires aren't bad enough. But vampire elves, everybody can hate them.
Thank you, CH. Yeah, I poured my heart and soul into The Vow That Twisted Fate. It was a standalone where the others are all series that I have put out.
So are you indie, or do you have a traditional contract?
I am indie. I'm indie by choice. So I'm a pitch coach and an editor for a living, and then write and put out books on the side as a hobby and a passion project.
New York Times bestsellers. I just, that's a hobby. Throw out the odd New York Times bestsellers. Eat that. Nice.
No.
USA Today. I'm the one who keeps, but it'll happen.
USA Today. But I think it's, I've told somebody this earlier today for work, that every book really needs its own unique journey. And sometimes that's traditional and sometimes that's indie. And in my case, my niche is indie, and I've embraced that and I love that. And I'm happy where I am. But if you try hard enough and you keep writing and you don't give up, I think that's what makes even USA Today and hopefully one day New York Times open for indies. So, yeah. But to your question, Mike, earlier this year.
What's the horror story?
Yes, one sentence summary, back up your work, people. Now, earlier this year, I decided to launch a dark epic fantasy series. It was a 5-volume series that I had written all the books for. I actually wrote them back in high school, and I rewrote them over the last year and decided I was going to put them out one a month. One in January, February, March, April, and May. And I launched January, and I launched February, and then I went to upload the file for the one in March, and the file was corrupted. Which is even worse than the file not being there, because you see like the physical file and you click it and it's like, this file is corrupted. So then I'm like, okay, no worries. I've got it in Dropbox. Pull up Dropbox. This file is corrupted. Go get it off my USB. This file is corrupted. And at that point, I'm like, these are full-length novels. These are not novellas. And I have to rewrite what I already rewrote over last fall all over again to put this out. And at that point, I think I was putting them out every 21 days. And I just could not get it done. The process from writing it from scratch changed the book a whole lot. And it had to be completely re-edited. And by that point, it was the middle of the editing busy season. And as I said earlier, I edit for a day job. So I got sucked into the editing busy season and pretty much haven't come back up for air. Although I did re-release, just unofficially, they're back up. Volumes 1 and 2 are back up. Volume 3, trying to get it out. I haven't said this anywhere. I'm trying to get it out in January. But I'm not going to do a big push for it. Just slip it out there. And, but yeah.
Books 4 and 5 are not corrupted?
No. Books 4 and 5 are there.
Did book 4 have to change to meet how book 3 changed?
Not really. Each of them follow a separate main character a little further along in timeline. So there's no overlap.
I remember all of that. And oh my God.
It's the most fun book, which was the benefit. It was the one about this pirate religious monk. But she's a pirate warrior too. But so it was the most fun to write. So it's like, well, at least that's the one I've got to rewrite out of the series. But
still, the thought of rewriting, 90, 100,000 words. Did you sit there for even a minute though and say, okay, I gotta bang this out in 21 days?
I did try really hard for the first week.
Yeah.
And then I actually have a video up, and I just decided to leave it up on my YouTube, where I was very raw and very open about what had happened, because I feel like as indies, sometimes we feel like I'm so stupid. I'm the only one who's done these things. And if we could be transparent and open, maybe we can help other people get through those things, because the worst thing to me would be looking at it, feeling like a failure, and deciding I'm done writing and publishing altogether, which is the last thing. It's like, okay, go drink your beverage, wallow in your tears for a couple weeks, get back up, dust off, do it, and do it right, really.
Yeah, I think I probably would have been stuck on the drink the beverage portion of that. Smacking my head into my desk. Oh my God.
So yeah, that is the nightmare. I told friends I bought a new laptop because my desktop is 8 years old, and I had to restart it. I'm like, we're going to restart, right? Come on. So that is, once I get this book out, I'm going to I bought a new laptop. I'm going to transfer the files, and yes, I'm living in fear. I'm like, no, this has happened to someone I know. Do not want it to happen to me.
Well, my big suggestion to authors is you have the ability to upload the file when you create the pre-order. And when I do series like this in the future that I rapid release, I'm planning on scheduling and uploading the file at the exact same time. So there's no way, even if the file does become corrupted somewhere, it's already uploaded, it is safe. My formatter will have a copy of it. I can grab it from them. And yeah, that'll be how it goes. This one I hadn't even sent to the formatter. I was running behind. And that was my big takeaway. If you don't prepare, you set yourself up for failure a whole lot easier.
It's kind of funny that no one's ever mentioned, printing it out.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, rekeying 100,000 words would be a kind of misery all its own. But having to just make it up again is... Oh.
John.
We appreciate John trying to fill the dead chat here. That's fine, because Oof is absolutely right. Oof. I think everybody who hears that just kind of has that knotted up stomach feeling of, and right next to it the feeling of, oh, better you than me, but still with empathy, right?
Yeah.
With empathy.
And I'm sure there's someone out there that's like, can't believe they didn't have their book backed up.
Yeah, but you did in two different places. That's the scary thing.
He kept saving the same corrupt file.
Yeah.
So, as an indie, and this is probably a talk all in its own, but how does one fight the marketing beast to become a best-selling author as an indie? What's the secret sauce there?
So I was very fortunate to be doing it as a team with over 30 other authors, because we all put, like, this is a full-length novel, but we all put our full-length novels into the Realm of Darkness set to push together and pool our efforts and go for that title. And we started about a year and a half before the book came out with marketing. We created a Facebook group. We each had our own platforms already. And at that point, The Violet Twisted Fate had already come out. And very thankfully, if any of my readers like CH is watching, thank you guys. I already had a lot of followers. I had a newsletter. And if you think about, if every indie author who's newer starts with 2,000 or 3,000 people, and you get together a group of 30, then right there you have thousands and thousands of people to talk about books. So we were trying to bring our groups together, and we walked away from it with a whole new reader base, essentially.
Yeah, nice.
Because they're like, oh, I like books that have this element or that element. And my book isn't for everybody in the group's readers, but there was a lot of crossover between some of us. So really, to me, I went into it wanting the list and working hard for the list, but more wanting to see if I could connect with readers. Because again, being a full-time author for a career wasn't my main goal. My main goal was, I'm writing, I want people to read it and read my books and see if this is something I could maintain long-term. Try drinking more of it.
Try to offer good advice whenever I can.
Yes. But yeah, so we got together, we did group parties in each other's social media circles. A lot of our work was organic. We didn't spend tons and tons on marketing. We did pool our funds for a big giveaway that included a video by James Marsters from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. We played Spike, and we did launch parties and cover reveals. And then toward the end, we paid for some email style promos. I know I booked several for the group myself with oh goodness, now I'm going blank. The email book, or not BookBub, but it's going to strike me later. Bargain Booksy. Bargain Booksy.
So what you're saying is you were an overnight success.
I feel like I was an 18-month success. And me and every other woman in that group. And I think we had a couple guys.
Yeah. And that is the lesson for new authors. You are not going to publish your book and be Stephen King. You're going to do a lot of work, and you're going to have to get a little bit of luck, and you're going to have good people to help you along the way.
I mean, the thing about being indie is this is not an isolated journey. It really is a community journey. So yes, you can have a lightning strike chance of being lucky and making it big. I think Colleen Hoover's first book was put up on Amazon Kindle for her grandmother, and then she opened Kindle the next day and some influencer had found it, and then it just blew up. But for the majority of us, it's the community of authors together that brings everybody up to the level we get.
So I want to ask, as a fellow Spiffbo 9 author, what was your impression overall of Spiffbo?
This was my first year doing Spiffbo.
And would you recommend it, or are there any reasons why you should not do it?
I 100% recommend doing it, unless you are not comfortable with community visibility. I feel like Spiffo is, I've done a lot of contests, but this is the only one I have done where there is the engagement of the authors that there are in Spiffo. Like when I sent my book to Next Generation Indie Book Awards, I submitted it and that was it. And I didn't hear anything about it until a few weeks before. And they're like, oh, you're one of the fantasy finalists. And like, here's your stickers, here's your medal, here's an invitation to the dinner if you want to come. And that was like, that was great. And it was an honor, but that was it. And then Spiffo, I get in there and it's a rush to get in.
Yeah.
Like we filled up, wasn't it under an hour?
41 minutes.
We filled up super fast. And then they have a Discord group and it just started blowing up with, here's who I am, here's what I write, let's talk. Twitter was exploding. I had not marked my book down on sale because I didn't think about it getting any visibility being part of Spiffo. And then all of a sudden people are like, yeah, the book's 99 cents. I'm like, oh, quick, change price so people can get my book for 99 cents while everybody's talking about it. And I changed it to free one day the next week. But I was like, come on, get the book out there. But I think it might be a little overwhelming for newer authors who aren't prepared to market their book. Like if you just published and you don't have a blurb, you aren't really comfortable talking about it, then you might not get as much out of it as someone who's ready to talk about the book, ready to be part of the community, ready to jump on the interviews and the blogs and all of that.
Right, because as authors, we're almost all introverts, and the last thing you want to do is talk. Like, why is everyone staring at me? Can I go back and just write my adventures?
Exactly.
I think the thing that kind of freaks me out a little bit is that all of this has made Mike a Discord user.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh God.
Me too. I did not have Discord before Spiffo.
Yeah. I've downloaded it and I've joined a couple of things, but honestly, I got rid of Twitter about a year ago, right? Because it's just something I didn't use, and it's just kind of I don't know. I don't like it that much. But to have to go into all this stuff all the time, it's like, wow, it's having a job and trying to do the writing and, doing things like this and playing Civ 6, which is an enormous time suck. The Discord thing, talking to people who you can't see, if you know them, okay, I guess that's something. But, and maybe it's just, get off my lawn. I don't know.
So, Ro, I will tell you what you need to do is you need to watch the Blitz that Katherine does.
Uh-huh.
And then you will meet all these people. You can be on panels.
Where do I find that, Mike?
I will send it to you. I don't know if there's spots left open, Katherine, for your Blitz.
We are full. We have over 100 authors in this year's Blitz.
Okay. So I won't look for that.
So I sent a couple people we interviewed. Chris Grooms was one of the authors that interviewed, and I'm like, you got to go to Katherine's. You got to go. And he's like, I don't know. You're interviewing me, and it's all me. I don't know if I want to share the time. I'm like, yes, you do. Yeah, I don't know if you went or not. I very strongly told him, you need to go do this. It's coming up. So I told him that was around the 1st of December or so. So I don't know if he signed up or not. I hope he did. But, yeah. That's why we're doing these shows is basically, help out other indie authors. I don't know.
Yeah. I really appreciate what you guys do so much. Other people who are watching do it, like Tori and Andrew Wizard. The New Year Book Blitz, this is the 3rd year doing it. And when I started, I was a tiny YouTube channel. And I reached out to some indie authors I knew, and I was like, hey, you want to just talk about writing, talk about the genres, talk about the books? People don't know who indie authors are. Let's start getting together because, again, it goes back to if I write this genre and you write these genres, our readers might have other people to read while they're waiting on our books.
Right.
And then last year we had around 80 people. And then this year we've got over 100 people. And it's just 3 or 4 days. This year it's 4 days where it's back-to-back YouTube live panels where people talk about indie books, indie writing, the different genres in fantasy, sci-fi, and mystery. And yeah, I'm excited. Thank you, JC.
And
that sounds pretty awesome, actually. And something like that, it's really useful to have someone, another author, even if they are in the same genre as you. I mean, as you said at the beginning, it's not really a competition, right? It's two people who do the same type of thing who can. Mike and I, before the show started here tonight, we were talking about some stuff we were working on and kind of bouncing ideas off each other. It's like, hey, you understand what I'm going through with this as a writer. So I have this dilemma, right? Do I do A, B, or C? Because they're all great and they're all terrible all at the same time. Which do you think? And Mike has an opinion, of course. So I know now not to do that and to go the other way.
Oh God!
Unalive them. Unalive them.
So I just want to say, since JCM is in the house, he has just been booked for the first week of January.
Oh, right. Cool.
I'm really looking forward to that. Wistful Ascending is one of my top 5 reads. I don't know if I read last year or this year, but I'm still going to say it's top 5 for this year, even if it was last year, because it's phenomenal.
Yeah, but we'll talk to you next year.
Yeah. You're we don't care about you until next year.
Yeah, take notes, JCM. Take notes. Oh, I don't review any trad books. I do review books, but they're always indie, and usually they're ones that I've reviewed for Readsy Discovery. Very rarely do I do public reviews, because I feel like as an author, and I'm curious to know what you guys think, I am an honest reviewer. I'm not going to leave somebody a good review just because they're a fellow indie, and I'm known for not giving 5 stars. So my typical rule is if it's a 3, that's a well-read book. A 4 is an I loved it, and a 5 is a must-read, which is Readsy's scale. And if it's 3 or better, I will leave you a public review. But if it's under 3, I'm not going to mention it at all, unless you specifically tell me you want it. I'm not going to put it up.
I think that's fair, right? I mean, so there's no reason to just say, to use John's words, this is mostly trash, right? But that's also telling the author something. It's giving them some feedback without giving them feedback, really.
Mm-hmm.
So I this year I went heavy into booktubers, and I sent my book to many people. And if there's anybody here who wants to review my book, I will send it to you. Always an open invitation. But I had one person who loved his channel, and I'm blanking on his name now. Patrick Ryan. I mean, everything. He's like, I like this book, and I would read it. I'm like, my God, we have the exact same taste. Love this. Always watch this channel religiously. And he read my book. He's like, 3 stars. I had problems with A, B, C, and D. I'm like, what? But I mean, everything he said was valid. So,
Right.
I was like, I appreciate it.
The thing is that there are some books that a lot of people can agree kind of suck, right?
Yeah.
But there's still people who love those books, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter, because all you got to do is like find the people. There are people who don't like Tolkien, right?
Yeah.
Now, I don't know what's wrong with them, or if they have medication for their problem, but they don't like it. And it's objectively good, but you just got to find your audience, right? You got to find the people who do like it, and there's going to be people who like it.
Yeah. And that's it. Find your tribe, and then put out stuff they would like. So.
Well, and indies get better, just like traditional. If you go read Stephen King's earliest works, they're not up to the par of today's either. And so I feel like sometimes we put out our early stuff, and nowadays with social being what it is, it gets so much more visibility, and we compare our debut novel to somebody else's 30, 40, 50 year career novel.
Yeah,
it's just not realistic.
Yeah, and that's the thing too, right? Your first novel is still your first novel. There's a lot of learning going on. And I don't know how long it took before Stephen King stopped doing cocaine while he was writing, Maximum Overdrive. Have you ever seen it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I was at a Comic-Con in Tennessee once, and there was a guy had the big goblin head from the truck from Maximum Overdrive, and he was playing that movie on a loop all weekend. So I just watched that thing multiple times per day. And it got to the point where it was just so bad it was kind of good, and you kind of like, look, oh, here, this scene, But Stephen King has said that he said, yeah, this is why you don't make movies while you're high, right? So yeah, you got to expect people to get better, right? If you don't like someone, you can't write them off forever because you didn't like one book of theirs. You got to give them a little time to get better at what they do, because it's a craft like anything else, right?
Absolutely.
So, Catherine, what is coming out next from the Katherine D. Graham Publishing House?
Yeah, it's been really crickets. I actually owed several people. This fall has been super rough with some changes with my family, with career and all of that stuff. And so I got a little behind on everything, and the writing, since it's a hobby, was cut as part of that. So I've got a few edits left that I'm knocking out. And then once those are out, I started a project for National Novel Writing Month that I got a couple thousand words on called Within the Clockwork Vault. The steampunk fantasy, and it's sort of got like a Alice in Wonderland meets Treasure Planet vibe to it.
Nice.
But that's one book that I'm hoping to put out next year, and then the series that a lot of people have been waiting on, but I wanted to have both books completely done, is Starfire Express. And that's a dark fairy tale inspired, but not fairy tale related book about a human woman who ends up on a train full of monsters on a celebration tour. And essentially is like 10th Kingdom meets Hunger Games in that one. Fairies and dragons at war with a slight romantic side plot that is not very deep. So not really good for the big romance people looking for fae books, but sort of a different twist on fae, I guess.
That's awesome. You know, the thing when I interview authors and they tell you this is the book coming up, my idea, and I'm like, God, that's such an awesome idea.
Why didn't I think of that?
Yeah. I'm like, now I'm going to write a book about someone on a train with monster. No.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of mine are from dreams. Val started with me having a dream about the scene in the middle of the book where the main character wakes up in the evil dimension, because in that book the world has been split and all the good was left in one dimension and all the evil was banished to a different dimension. And she wakes up in the evil dimension, and I dreamed that scene, and then I was like, I have to know what happens. So I woke up and I started writing in a pen and paper notebook, wrote the whole book out in the course of like 3 days, and then had to type it in and refinish that. And that was in 2001. So it took a long time for that book to come out. It just came out in 2021. So yeah, 20 years later, it's all the light of day.
So, and I have to ask.
Sorry, you put something out every year?
I started publishing in 2021, and I have published every year since.
Okay, so I want to ask before I forget, you said that the editing busy season started. When is the editing busy season? I would have thought it was more, even throughout the year.
Yeah, so there's typically a big push right in. So there's like 3. There's usually December/January, which is where all the NaNoWriMo people are looking for beta reads. And I'm a developmental editor primarily. I do offer some proofreading as well, but I primarily do developmental editing, which is looking for plot holes, character development, world building, things like that. So when NaNoWriMo's over, I get a lot of professional beta reads where they're like, you're a developmental editor, but I don't have the funds to pay for all that stuff. You don't have to plot my work for me, but just pick out, the core stuff. And I do those. And then another big push usually is in May through June or July, when people are getting ready to write over the summer or publish over the summer. That's another really big one for proofreading, because those people are getting their books ready to push them in for back to school or for Christmas. So those are the biggest seasons every year.
Awesome. So I can vouch for your proofreading skills.
Thank you. Yeah, I throw in a plot every once in a while, but I try not to do it.
I'm so happy. Ro is actually my line editor. You're my proofreader. So just don't tell people that, English is really not a language that I understand well. Because I get the edits back and I'm like, it's questionable if I'm even monolingual. when I get the edits back. So huge thank you to both of you.
Nice to meet you, Ro.
Yeah, you too. We'll keep him in line. We'll sort him out, but don't give away that damn sword.
No.
You know what I'm talking about, Catherine?
Yes.
Yeah. Did that bother you too?
Yes.
Yeah. I wrote all kinds of comments on there, like in capital letters. No, 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 no.
I refrain. I try so hard to only point out plot when I'm like, is this a hole? Was this supposed to be something else? Because I feel like when someone hires me for a proofread, I've got to shift to a different part of my editor brain and turn off the other.
Yeah.
But it's tempting. Like, I didn't put anything in there when my favorite character is unalived, and I wanted to be like, no, why?
So I will tell you that I'm a weirdo. And I actually have two proofreaders because I love what you do. And I love when you like, hey, Mike, here's a plot hole that should have been fixed months ago. Love that. I'd much rather fix beforehand. And then Melissa Stone.
Oh, yeah.
Wonderful. And I promised myself, I'm like, okay, after she touches it, I just accept the changes and I don't look at it again because I am a typo savant. And I will just, everything that people like, I found this typo. I'm like, yep, they fixed it. Then I wrote another sentence and yeah, that's where the typo came in. So,
that's a great point.
Spell characters' names.
You definitely have to vet, and I don't feel like all editors are good for all voices or all goals. No. I think I sent Val, even though I'm an editor, I pay for editors to edit my book. Yep. I self-edit using AutoGrit, and then I go and I get editors to do the copy edit and the proofread. But I still went, and I think I paid like 6 different people to do a sample of the first chapter to make sure they were going to match what I was looking for before I went with a copy editor.
Yeah. There's the author has to be willing to be able to accept criticism, right? I mean, and I think we all kind of understand that going in. You have to have a thick skin. But also the editor has to, I look at it as, I want to be able to put, I don't want to just say, change this to this. I want to say, change this to this for this reason, in the hopes that the next one that comes back is better, right? If I can make you think about something even a little bit better as a writer, first of all, it makes my job easier next time, right? Yeah. So it's a little self-serving in that regard, but it's just better to read a better written book, right? I mean, we all know that. Never let them go.
So true. And editors get burned out, though. I think I've got like a team of 6 editors, and there's any given time, any one of them will be out, recovering, breathing, because you can cycle through so many books. I think I sat down and I was like, I've done 153 books this year. And I'm so tired.
What now?
153 books this year. It's just been
find time to write.
I don't. So like, that's what I meant. Ever since the busy season came, I have not been writing because the writing is my hobby. So it's like been on.
So the editing is your 9 to 5.
Yeah. The editing is my
that makes a lot more sense then. All right.
Yeah. And I love it. I wouldn't reverse it. I think if I had to write on demand, some people do really good at that. But I feel like if I had to churn out to meet a deadline to make bills, I would lose my passion for it. So I'd much rather help other people bring their books to life and then put my books out when I feel like it.
Yeah. It's also kind of nice doing it, I think, because you get to see what other people are doing. And every now and then there's a little nugget in there of something that you kind of go, oh, that would work, right? Yeah. It's like, I'm going to steal this little thing, right? Not the plot or the story or even a character, but maybe just, I was talking to Mike earlier, and I saw somewhere, and it wasn't an editing project, it was something else, the phrase, a waterfall of glass. And I just love the phrase. And it's like, yes, I will have a waterfall of glass in one of my books. And I do. But yeah, just things like that. It's always good. Let's see, what's John got here? I have had editors in college newspapers that wanted to change stuff for the sake of it and control, and also grammar. Yeah, college editors John, are teenagers who think because they are in the process of getting an English degree, they know what they're talking about.
Like
We've all-
writers, you get better the more you edit.
Right.
Yeah.
I've been editing for people for 10 years, and I feel like this is so much easier today than when I started editing for people in college.
And you also just have to, get to know the writer. Right? I mean, Mike writes different than other people write. Getting used to his first person narrative style took me a bit.
And do you know why I did that? Because as young, impressionable writer, I saw someone said, "Oh, well, writing first person is easier than any other way. You should write first person." I was like, "Okay, that's what I'll do," and it is not. I don't think.
Because it doesn't give you any space to move around, right? You've got to stay with that person.
Yep, you got to have the blinders on, and yeah, I mean, everything has its pluses and minuses, but I don't know. I just started that way, and I'll tell you, I went back to my first novel that I wrote, which was a sci-fi, and oh my God, when I started as a writer, I knew nothing. So I wrote my book. It was 34,000 words. And I was like, okay, I'm done. Now I have to find out how to publish this. There was no talk about an editor anywhere. And I printed it out and I gave it to some people at work. I said, well, tell me what you think of it. And, they're all friends. They all said it was great. I'm like, well, maybe I can do a little bit better. So I'll do a second edit. And then as I start doing more, I'm like, and I just looked at it. I'm like, this is terrible. I'm just going to open a whole new document. I mean, the storyline is fine, but the writing is abysmal. I mean, tenses were flying back and forth, past, present, future in the same paragraph. Just, oh my God, a nightmare.
You did the Katniss Everdeen. You lied to me. You're a liar.
Yeah. So I have one friend at work who I let him, he alpha reads because he'll come up and he'll have this big smile on his face, like, I found plot holes. And he's just so happy. And I go and I buy him lunch at Wendy's. This is what I pay my alpha reader, a Wendy's biggie bag, $6 meal. And then he is so happy. He's like, and then this is a plot hole and that is a plot hole. And I'm like, that's fine. I know you're loving this, but I need to find this out before it gets published. So have at it.
Right.
Yeah. I treat mine with Taco Bell.
And there are people though who don't like to be told that. I've got a friend who does writing, editing for not books or anything, but for like a government organization, and he deals with people who don't like to be told that something is wrong, even if it is objectively an error. Right? It's not like you just don't like it this way. It's like this is wrong, and they just don't want to hear it. And they're like, "Oh, I'm not going to change it." Okay,
it's hard.
You do you, right?
Yeah, it's hard. I wrote The Vow That Twisted Fate in first person, and it took every bit of the 4 editors that I had to bring it up to the level that it is. I'm very proud of it now. My other books are mostly third person. But when my developmental editor sent The Vow That Twisted Fate back, and that's the first one that I had like edited by somebody else, I was so upset. I was like, this is garbage. This is trash. And I literally put it down and I did not write again for a year. It's like, I'm just meant to be an editor. I can't write. This is for somebody else. And then I came back and my husband was rifling through my files on my computer to help me find something. And he pulled up, he's like, what is this? And he started reading over it. And he is brutally honest. He has also told me that certain aspects of my book were bad. And he doesn't read fiction like at all. And he read this. He's like, this is something special. You should publish this one. Yeah. And I was like, you never like what I write. He was like, well, I like this. And I think this is good. And so I picked it back up and I took myself out of it. And I saw someone say in the Quill and Cup group on Instagram that you pour yourself into a book, essentially. But once you've poured it out, it's not yours anymore. And removed myself personally from it and was like, okay, let's look at this as a reader. Let's look at this as an editor. Chopped it to bits, rewrote the entire ending. It now has a happy ending thanks to the editors. And yeah, it's so much better for it. And then since then, every book has gotten easy to the point where the last couple, the editor sends it back. I'm like, okay, yeah, we're going to change it. We're going to fix this.
Yeah, once you built up that relationship with them, where you're comfortable taking what they say, it's like a car mechanic, right? I mean, not everybody's as good as everybody else, right? But once you find somebody who knows what they're doing and says, "Oh, I know what that knocking is," then you can do that.
So I will tell you, when I get books or stuff back from editors, well, Roe is very kind. He actually gives me all the changes already accepted for me, so I don't have to go through and realize just how bad I am at English.
That's not the only one I give him. I do give him one that has all the changes there that he can take or not.
No,
See, now I feel bad because I'm like, here's all your changes.
And I don't even download the one because I'm like, oh my God, I am so bad with English. My mom was an English teacher in grade school for 37 years, and I can't even imagine what she's thinking of me now.
But you know math.
Yeah. But then when I actually do the changes, I'm like, oh, thank God. This would be embarrassing if someone in public saw this. So I'm actually happy to get the edits back. I'm like, this is making me look so much smarter than I really am.
But to be fair, by the time I see it, Rose already looked at it, and there's really not a lot. It's like there's a thing here or there that's like really tricky to find, but that's like it. And I think that's what makes a good editing team, right? You got multiple people. With Val, there was a mistake on page 2. 4 different human people went through this book, and I used the wrong version of leaks.
Oh.
And none of us caught it.
The fastest way to find an error is to publish the book.
You're like, page 2.
I think I used road instead of road once. I meant to do RODE and I used ROAD, but it was on like page 255 or something. So I said, I'm not. It's like, fine, whatever.
Yeah, I republished this one like 3 days later because like, oh no. So the ARC readers have the original printed version of the typos. Here's one with the typo, but yeah.
So no. I had a husband and wife author team. They put shoot SHOOT and they meant CHUTE. It's like, we read this a million times. Our editors read it. And it wasn't until 2 years after it was published when somebody said, hey, I found a typo. Shouldn't this be? And they're like, oh my God, they're not even close to one another spelling wise.
Yeah. Microsoft Word, instead of just spell check, also needs like a synonym check and an antonym check and all that. Yeah. They need to do that. It's like, this word could be there, or there.
Yeah.
Would have said to me, John, this is 2023. But John, it's 2023. You can write pretty much anything now. That's the beauty of it.
See, I feel like that falls more on my shoulders as the developmental editor, especially if it's someone that if you're wanting to go traditional, wanting to go indie, it's so much freer on what you can put out.
Yeah.
There's some things you have to tiptoe around going trad, but
I'm going to ask you the question that people don't like. If a publishing house called you up and said, we want to publish one of your books, make you a traditional author, what would you say?
I heard somebody say this on last year's Blitz, so I'm going to steal their answer, and they know who they are if they're watching. If someone came to me and said, I want to make you a big deal, here's $1 million, sure, you can have my book. The book's out there. I've put it out. If they want to show up and pay me money for a book that's already been out and published, that's fine. I don't know that I would jump headfirst into a publishing deal moving forward. I think there's so much, since I've worked as a pitch coach and I know that side a little bit, there's so many fine things that go into contracts, royalty splits and content rights. And I've seen authors sign away their pen name to traditional publishers, not just their books, but like your whole pen name in this deal. And so I feel like I'd be very wary.
Yeah.
I'm not saying I would never do it, but it would come down to me, I'd feel like there'd have to be a finite, here's what I want from you. Here's what we want to partner with you on. So I don't think I'll ever completely be ready to leave indie behind 100%.
I think most people kind of feel the same way. But
yep.
I'd love to see a book on a movie screen or something, or one of the other perks of going big. But even within traditional, there's a misconception that if you go traditional, you're going to have all this publicity and marketing. Your book's going to be at Barnes & Noble and all this stuff. And I think we had Kendara Blake on my channel a couple weeks ago, who's a #1 New York Times bestseller. She did Buffy the Next Generation and was very open about her experience getting signed traditional. And she managed to negotiate and retain control of most of her content, but not her covers. I think you just have to be careful, I guess is what I'm coming down to. So if there is an agent or a publisher and they're like, I want that book, sure, I'm never going to turn away an opportunity, but just be careful about what you're doing and maybe get an agent to represent.
Yeah, I would think today, especially with all the rights around ebook and everything else, you would absolutely want to, at the very least, a lawyer who understands that kind of stuff to take a look at it.
Yeah, because now trad authors have to do a lot of their own marketing, just like indie authors. And if that's the case, if I have to do my own marketing, if I have to do my own editing, I might as well stay indie.
So another thing, I interviewed Ron Belcher, who he writes full time, so he's making enough to be just a writer. And he had a book deal and he wrote 2 books and they made money, but ultimately the house said, you're not making enough. And they kicked him off. So now, and Amazon had him do a just for Amazon only release. So, he said he went on pressers. He flew to California with really big name authors and they just had signing things. And he's like, I'm with a small publisher now out of Georgia. He goes, you know what? I don't get the big advance, but I still get the benefits of they'll do the editing and covers and things that he doesn't want to do. But I don't know. I don't know why you'd want to be a traditional author unless you said like they want to throw a lot of money at you to make it worth your while. But
yeah, or if you have all these books and you don't want to dive into having to do the editorial and the marketing, and you can go pitch an agent first and get an agent who will be the representative for your rights to those publishers, then maybe it would be worth it. And again, if that's where your majority of your niche is too, it could be worth it. But for me personally, it all comes back to if I had to write on demand, and I just don't think I could write on demand. And I think earlier this year with Lord's Gambit was what made me realize that is not what I wanted to be my career, because I just don't want to put out books that are just good. I want my books to be full of soul. And for me personally, I can't turn that out like some people can. Some people can put out a book a month and pour their heart and soul into it, and I just need more time.
Oh, that's amazing. Every time I hear somebody talk like that, it's like, oh yeah, I put like 5,000-10,000 words a day. It's like, good God. I can physically type that much in a day, but it's going to be gibberish.
So I talked to a guy this past weekend. He's an author. He has 145 books out. He writes novellas, and he was showing me his computer's like, oh yeah, I use AI, and they do this, and I'm like, no, just stop.
He uses it to write?
Well, he writes romances and apparently erotica. He didn't really want to, but a lot of stuff he writes is formulaic. And so
I never thought I'd write a letter like this. If you're old enough, you get that.
So then he ended up, he's said he tweaked around with it. So basically he's written his romance, and then he's like, okay, now change the city and the names. And, and then he just goes and makes he's like, look, I make $100 a month is all I make. But, and like, I got 145 books out there. And the funny thing is he will not tell anyone what his pen name is. It's like, not even my wife knows. She doesn't need to know what I'm writing. I'm like, not my problem. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm really curious what his his Google search list looks like.
Yeah. Yeah. I really don't judge authors on, whatever preference they have. I can only speak for myself. And, I think that's why I love being a pitch coach. I'm ecstatic when somebody that I've coached who's wanted to go trad, and that's like what their heart and soul is, get signed. I'm so happy for them. And then they're like, well, why haven't you gone for an agent? And I was like, because where your heart and soul is for that, my heart and soul is seeing your face and other people like you light up. and the indie authors that I edit, seeing their work really shine, like that's what gives my career joy. So we're all just different.
You are in a very kind of rare place, I think, Catherine, where you not only are, kind of chasing your joy, as it were, but you understand what it is that makes it. And I think that's probably much more rare than people think, But I mean, traditional publishing has to be doing something for people, or nobody would do it, right? So,
right. Yeah. So, oh. So, Catherine, do you do any public events like with your books, or are you too busy editing and writing and rewriting and rewriting?
I'm honestly, I'm an extreme introvert, and I've gotten a little better doing YouTube lives because of hosting them. But I wear a Fitbit, and my heart rate goes up to like 120 every time I do a live. And I'm like, yeah, it's like 115 right now. But I was like, and it's like, you're in the fat burning zone. I'm like, yeah, let's do more YouTube lives. But I don't know. I don't think I could comfortably do a live in person where I'm like, oh, I have to sell things instead of just talk to people. But no, I would love to go to a conference and meet fellow authors someday.
Yep. And where are you? Are you in Memphis? Am I right in guessing you're in Memphis?
Memphis is the closest city to me. I'm like 20 to 30 minutes out of Memphis. So I just tell people Memphis because it's easiest.
Oh, okay. Is there anything that we didn't tell people about you that you want to share, other than you will be a New York Times bestselling author soon enough?
One day, yes. Really read Mike's books because I know they're coming out and they're great, and agonized over them. I'm sure Ro has too. And Ro, I'm going to have to look into yours. But yeah, really come and meet the new indie authors next week is the big thing. After Christmas, we're going to start Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. Those are unpaid. I never charge authors to be on the channel, just like you guys don't, because it's about letting people meet new authors, read new books. And with 90 people all live like this real time, like nothing pre-recorded, it's going to be a whirlwind weekend.
You have 90 people on the thing at once?
No. They're individual panels. So 4 or 5 people per panel. I don't think my StreamYard can handle 90 people.
Yeah, that would just be a giant Charlie Foxtrot all over the place.
Yeah.
Well.
So, looking forward to the Blitz. I put that up. Let me put it up again in case. Do you have spots left?
No, I am completely full. We have got everybody.
When does it start? Which date?
It will start the 28th.
28th.
And how often do you do
them? There's usually about 5 or 6 panels a day.
No, I mean, how often? When this is your book Blitz, do you only do it once a year?
Well, I'm doing New Year's Blitzes are my big ones. And then usually once a year in the summer, I do like a week-long Blitz, but it's not as big as this. And then this year being in SPIFBO, I did a SPIFBO one for all the
great. That was wonderful.
We did live reads from books and all of that with the SPIFBO ones. So maybe next year I'll try those again. But I do have indie authors come on my channel through the year, and I have an indie author behind the scenes playlist for tools and tips that I'm finding out about and I'm learning and using for publishing that I just share the honest truth about as I go through. But really, it's the meeting the authors and reading their books and adding to my dying TBR list that makes it worth doing.
So I'm more like Ro, and I read 1, maybe 2 books a month, if that. And I, between the full-time job and then the writing that loses money and, everything, I'm like, I don't have a lot of time. So I typically listen to them in the car when I'm driving to and from. Yeah. And this way I'm not screaming at the other drivers and everyone ends up getting to where they're going happier. But
the only thing about listening to books is it's really hit or miss with the person doing the narration.
Right? Yeah.
Because a bad narrator will just absolutely crush a book.
No, there's a great thing for that. I actually have books that I don't like the narrator, and I just put on a chapter and I fall asleep to it at night. This is
That's cool,
wonderful.
but not when you're driving.
No, not when you're driving. But yeah, I actually have a list of books that I use for at night. I'm like, okay, I'm going to put him on, and I will be asleep before this chapter is over. And then I just start with the next chapter because I'm like, I got the first half. I kind of got the gist. It's usually nonfiction.
I want to see your review for that book.
No, I do not review it.
This is the best thing since Ambien. This guy's fantastic.
Oh, gosh.
Oh,
Well, thank y'all so much. And I know I've seen some of my subscribers in the chat. So if my subscribers are on here, follow Mike and Rose's channel too, because they are doing author interviews too. It's great.
Well,
So-
I hope they do. That would be awesome.
so Catherine, I do have one question for you. Have you been on the Beard of Darkness yet?
No.
Oh, how he's missed you? I think his mission in his life is to interview every single indie author there is in fantasy.
That's
so-
great.
He actually is the reason I told him, I was like, my first book I finished on the 4th of July, and then I hit publish in Amazon because what's this marketing you speak of? No, you just upload to Amazon and, wait for people to find you. And so I told him, I was like, yeah, I got to do this. And as soon as I'm done, I'll publish. He's like, Mike, if you'll wait even like 2 days, I'll have you on the channel and we can do a launch. I'm like, wait, this is my 4th book. And I'm finally not going to hit send as soon as I'm, the minute I'm done. I'm going to actually, so January 22nd, it's coming out. So I'm like, what is this when I'm finished? What do I do? Because, I'll have like weeks to where I'm not like, well, I'll probably want to go back and change things after the final proofread, which I better not do, but I'll be tempted. But yeah, so highly recommended. You should talk to him. He, like I said, he has 5 interviews a week. And I'm like, dude, how are there authors left?
Always more authors.
Always.
Thank y'all so much for having me on.
Thank you, Catherine. I appreciate it. You've been a good sport about all our nonsense.
Oh, it's been fun.
Okay, well,
All right,
I'm going to
have a good Christmas or holiday or whatever it is you do over this time of year, and good luck with your 100-person. I forget what it's called. I'm thinking sprint.
Oh, the Blitz. Yeah.
Blitz.
That's it. Oh, you're the Blitz.
Okay.
Thank you.
How I Met Your Mother reference there.
Happy holidays, everybody.
Yep.
You
And
too.
I'm
Take
going
care.
to get in stream so everyone wave and smile oddly till it ends. Yeah.